Okay, our 5 minutes is complete. I do want to record what the clock says so that I will know when my 60-minute stability time has passed. So I have 60 minutes from right now. I'm going to take my worksheet and my rack of tubes along with one clean cuvette that instructor has given me over to the spectrophotometer. First, I need to record which spec I'm using, whichever first available, and go to the maintenance log. I didn't pull it out. To record who did the maintenance on the worksheet, okay? Then, according to my instructions, I want to dial in the correct wavelength, and this one was 540. So I'm going to set wavelength. Can you see the NM for a wavelength? 540 set. You should see the dial change to the correct wavelength. Don't worry about what is on the screen because there's nothing inside. Okay? First thing I want to do is verify that my cuvette read window, that's the front and the back, are clean. Do not touch it on those surfaces. I can touch on the sides and all over the top. The V is the front. This are the read windows that the light beam is actually projecting through, so it must be clean. So I'm just going to hold it up to the light and make sure it looks clean. Okay? Starting with the first tube, which is blank, I'm going to pour all of this carefully, do not lose any of it, into my cuvette. Okay? Make sure there's nothing spilt on the outside. And it probably would be a good idea to use some lens paper to just give it a little wipe. Okay? Open the door, and you can see the load station. I want to have the front facing me and push it all the way down. Into the read station. Close the door. Always close the door between everything. This is the blank, so I need to actually tell it to measure the blank. And you'll hear a pause. Be sure to give it plenty of time. It should read 0.000 absorbance. If it does not, just press it again. Okay? If you have some bubbles in there, they might just move around and that will change your reading. So it should not be fluctuating. That's the only thing I dial into. Now I'm only going to take readings. I'm going to remove the cuvette with my blank in it. The very same tube that I poured it out of, I'm going to pour it back in carefully and try to get every last drop back into the tube. Okay? I am finished with this tube, so I'm going to put it to the back. I do not need to read it anymore. In between each sample, you want to blot it onto some gauze. Give a little tap to get any surplus fluids away from it. Okay? Now I'm ready for the next one. I did read my blank, so I'm going to check that yes, I read my blank and dial it into 0.000. My next tube will be my standard. So here's my standard. to carefully pour into the cuvette. And place into the reed station again. You do have to give it a little bit of a push. Not that much. Okay. Do not touch any numbers. So at this point, I am going to record the absorbance reading of my standard from the screen. So this one is 0.486. The spec does not automatically print, so I'm going to ask it to print so I have a record of this absorbance reading. But it is not identifying it, so I need to keep track. That's another reason to do it the same tube, same process every single time. Remove the cuvette, pour it back into the same tube that you took it out of. I'm finished with the standard. It goes to the back of my rack. And then tap my cuvette to try to dry it. Moving to the next tube, which is going to be my QC1. Very same thing. Pour it into the cuvette. I do have a bubble. Can you see that bubble there? I'm going to try to tap it and it'll probably just pop. Now, the reading that is going to be displayed, and do give it a few seconds to stabilize, will be the recorded absorbance reading for my QC level 1 that I will record here. So it is 0.437. This point, I want to press print again, and you can see it's fluctuated a little bit. You just want to watch it a few seconds and give it time to stabilize. Finished with QC1, so I'll pour it back into the test tube. Finished with it, goes to the back, tap, 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 tap. Now I'm ready for QC2. I don't see any bubbles this time. And give it a few seconds to stabilize for QC2 reading that I will record in that box, 0.339. It's still adjusting a little bit. I'm going to give it a few more seconds. I had 339, and it's back to 339. Okay. Print. And then remove my last sample, put it back into that test tube. And if you had patience, you would just follow suit. And at this point, I'm finished with the spectrophotometer. I'm going to take all my supplies back to my working bench and work on drawing my curve. I do want to inform you, especially if you did not lose significant volume in your pouring back and forth. After you draw your curve, if you're not satisfied with what your results are, you do have this 60 minutes for this particular analyte that I can come right back over here and read them again. So especially if you're seeing something you don't like or is not satisfactory, you do have that time for this test analyte. Other ones you don't. the glucose is very short stability, you most likely won't have time to come back. So this is a good learning, the first one you began with. And you can actually see the reaction. The blank is a light blue because nothing was there. My standard has 8.0 grams of protein in it, and it's pretty purple. My QC1 has about the same purple intensity as my standard, so I'm just betting it's close to 8.0. But my QC2 has a little bit less intensity of that purple, and so most likely it's going to be less grams. So those are kind of things you want to watch. You will have your patient in duplicate, so they definitely should visually look to you the same intensity. Now there will be a little bit of variation in the duplicate samples on the spec because it has a much better eye than we do.